My dear sisters and brothers, a very, very good morning to you, and a very blessed 13th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Today, the Church urges us to welcome Christ in others, mainly through the messengers of God who are among us. She equally encourages us all to be sensitive to those around us, and to be able to make a positive difference in their lives. In our first reading today, it was the generosity of the Shunem couple towards Elisha that brought them the blessing and joy of their life. They were sensitive to the plight and the immediate needs of the man of God. Little did they know that this would be the beginning of their blessings. Hence, through this act of generosity, hospitality, and sensitivity, things turned around for their good. The desire of the ages was fulfilled. On the other hand, Elisha was equally concerned and sensitive to the needs of the Shunem couple. So rather than burden them with more requests or to exploit their generosity, he prayed for them and blessed them through his prophetic ministry. Thus, his presence was a blessing to the household instead of a burden. Incidentally, the name Elisha means God saves. Precisely, this is what his actions affirmed. Moving on to our second reading, St. Paul recounts how Christ offers you and I new life through baptism. Jesus came and offered himself as a ransom, not for his own sake, but for our salvation. By accepting him through baptism, we have become one with him in death and in life. Also, by welcoming Jesus, we have received a share in his glorious life. You and I are no longer slaves to sin and death. This same Jesus lives in others. So we must equally welcome him in other people, especially those who find themselves marginalized by this society of ours. In today's gospel reading that we've just heard, Jesus spoke clearly about the need to welcome others for his sake. This is especially those who bear the good news. We could attract God's blessings to our homes, to our families, through generosity and hospitality, just like the Shunem couple did in our first reading. Through these, our lives and our fortunes could be transformed also. Sadly, though, these days, so many take so much for granted, and so many folk, communities, and yes, even churches are so indifferent to others and to their needs. This includes indifference to the presence of God's genuine messengers among us. This is because so many self-proclaimed and false men and women of God flood our society with false messages. This is to the extent that sometimes it's really, really hard to differentiate between a genuine and a false teacher. It could also be that we have become so used to one another, and of course to the men and women of God in our lives, that they've just become ordinary to us. More importantly, and sadly, it could be that these so-called men and women of God, as well as some of the faithful, have just simply lost the sense of the sacred. And finally, it's important to ask ourselves some important questions as we venture into this new week. Do we still value the presence of others in our lives, regardless of their differences? Are we sensitive to their needs? Are you and I a blessing to those that we meet, or more importantly, to those who meet us? Can they see Jesus in you and I? What good can I bring to those around me? Some important things to ponder this week. And so, my sisters and brothers, let you and I go out into our villages, to our towns, our schools, our malls, our churches, and let's be the welcoming love of Jesus to everyone that we come into contact with, in person, and yes, even on social media. Let you and I be a blessing and not a burden. Have a wonderful and blessed week. May God bless you and those that you love. Lord, have mercy.